Hello everyone, it's Cassie and welcome back for another Trinity Stamps video. Today we're going to be making a pull tab card, so let's jump right into what we're using. We have this adorable Abracadabra stamp set along with the matching dies, and there are dies for almost all the elements on this stamp set. So great. We're also going to be using the Center Stage Slimline die. This thing is fantastic for making scenes with a stage, and you even have little people that you can put in chairs. It's just fabulous. We're also going to be using the Papercrafting Magic stamp set along with its matching dies. Yes, there are matching dies for those words. And then we're also going to be using the Slimline Twist and Slide die set. We're just going to need a couple of pieces from that, and then we'll be able to make our pull tab. So let's move on to the next step. I went ahead, just for time's sake, stamped out all of my images onto some Express-It cardstock using some Blackout ink by Ink on 3. You'll notice I have a little smudge there. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to take the arm and we're going to cover that up. So we're going to leave it as is. And now we're going to do some Copic coloring. I chose Blackout ink along with this Express-It cardstock because they work really well for any sort of alcohol marker coloring. And in this case, these are Copics. So I'll do my best to put all the colors up on the screen. The first color was R43, and we're coming in with a mid-tone of R35. I am going to go one step further on this and use RV29. Normally I am kind of a two-color blend kind of gal. Sometimes I'll bring in a third color on occasion, but not always. But this I just thought was fun. I really wanted it to be dramatic. So then I'll work backwards from there and go mid-tone, then our lightest color. And you can see it works pretty nicely. Since we already have these colors out, we're going to go ahead and continue using them on the rest of the images. RV29 for her shoes, and then using that same process of lightest to darkest, we'll do that on her dress and on his bow tie and cummerbund. So I'll start with that that R43, come in with some R35, and then very lightly in some areas add that RV29. These are a little bit smaller areas to use a three-color blend, but I do it in some areas, just a few. And it's very, very subtle, just adding little dots in some places. And on his shoes, I decided to just make those a bright red with the R35 and the RV29. And then once again, working ourselves backwards. The R35, and then back again to the R43. And I just love how cute that is. Once that's all blended out, we're going to move on to her hair. I decided to make her a dirty blonde. So I chose the colors E55 and E84. And this is a prime example why you don't just go with the color on the cap to decide how those are going to look together. This is why it's so important to swatch out your products. So the E55 is a little bit lighter than the E8 or the E84. And it looks pretty good together. And then once again, just bringing in that darker shade of the E84. And it doesn't look like much until you get her skin tone on there, but I think she's really cute. For his hair, we're going with E08 and E19. My E19 is one of the original Copics, and I have actually switched out all of my chisel nibs on those and added the brush nib, because I just love the brush nib and the bullet nibs so much. I rarely use the chisel nib, so that is why I did that. Then we're going to come in with our skin tone for both of them, which will be E00, and then a darker shade of E11. I'm not going to blend out the E11. It isn't really that harsh. Normally I would say, oh, when you don't blend it, it's a harsh line. But because these colors are kind of close to each other, it's not really that harsh. You could always blend it if you wanted. So then we'll move on to him. And now once their skin tone is on there, their hair goes really well with it. I just think that's so fun. I love these little images, and you can color them pretty much any color you want. All right, for the tires and anything else that I want to be gray, I'm using the T markers. So I've started with T3. I'm going to come in with T5. And once again, that is one of those original Copics. And I didn't like how light those tires were, so I'm just going to go right over the top of that with that T5. Same thing with his cloak. I decided I wanted that to be a little bit darker than his pants. And then my darkest shade will be T7. And just adding a little bit of that, and then we'll work backwards again from there and blend those out just a little bit. Once that is all done and everything is blended, I'm going to grab out the matching dies and tack that down with a little bit of washi tape before I run that through my die cutting machine. After you do all that work, the last thing you want is for those dies to shift. So there you have it, and now we'll assemble all the pieces. So there I'm covering up that little ink splotch that I had with her arm. And then I'll put her head on there, and that piece is assembled. And then the other little box is going to have her feet coming out of the back. So these two pieces are going to slide. And then we'll put the saw in his hand. As a kid, I always wondered how that particular magic trick would work. All right, for the center stage Slimline die, I went ahead and, to save a little time, cut out all the pieces that I needed. My base is a piece of black cardstock, and I'm going to put the stage down first, the floor of the stage down first. This base measures 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So that is what I've chosen for my Slimline. You can make yours a little bit bigger. I don't believe there's an actual standard size, but that's what I usually do. I'll put down the curtains on the side. Those aren't going all the way to the top. That's where this piece is going to come in and cover up that gap. You could, leave this part off and just make sure that your curtain goes all the way to the top if you wanted. And then I'm going to add a little silver cardstock tassel to the end here. That's going to be like the tie back for the curtains. And I'll put one on the other side as well. And then to add a little bit more of that silver, this one ends up being a little bit longer, so I'm going to trim that down. But to add a little bit more of that silver, I have a long strip. That one was cut out using a long strip die from the center stage, Slimline die. And then I'll just tack that down. You could avoid this piece, but I really love that silvery glitter gorgeousness, and I feel like it just ties everything in, so I added that to the top. And now we'll need our interactive pieces. So this is our Slimline twist and slide die set. I'm putting the pieces on there and just kind of gauging where I'm going to need my mechanism to be, and going back and forth, just making sure that I have that right. When I'm happy with where it is, I'll tack it down with some hefty tape. It's just basically some post-it tape. I'm going to pull that down just a little bit farther, make sure everything lines up well, and then tack it down. And then this piece is going to get cut out of the side. My suggestion is flip it over and make sure that the piece lines up. And then you'll need 2 pieces of this long piece, and it doesn't matter what color you really cut them out, as long as your top piece isn't too different from your background, which is why my top piece is a black piece. And I only doubled it up so that it has a little bit more strength. You'll notice when I cut that out, this is what I was talking about, line it up. I have a little bit of paper showing, so I'm going to cut that off. You don't need that, or don't want that there. So I'm going to cut that off. And then we're going to move on to stamping out our Papercrafting Magic stamp set. So I've got the word pull. That's going to go on this little piece, and I'll cover that with some white embossing powder. And then I'm going to heat set that till that is smooth and melted. And then the next one is the other stamp that says, "This is no ordinary card." And I'm going to stamp that onto the black, cover that with that embossing powder, and then heat set that till that is smooth and melted. And there's a matching die for the words. I love that. So I'll tack down the die with some washi tape and run that through my die cutting machine. And then we're going to start actually doing some assembly. I am real big on making sure that you just double check everything before you actually start assembling, because otherwise you make mistakes. And when it takes this much time to make a card, the last thing you want is a giant mistake. So I line all those pieces up, kind of check again where I want everything. And then I'm going to mark this because I don't want this piece of cardstock to be that long. So I'm marking it, and then I'm going to trim it. And then I'm going to get my card base ready, which is a 7-inch by 8.5-inch piece of white cardstock that I scored at 3.5 inches. And I'm going to use my Trinity Teflon bone folders to ensure that I have a good crease. I'll stick that panel on top of the base, and I did save the little black piece that was cut out of here. So I'm going to put that back in the channel. That's just going to ensure that there isn't too much white showing. And then I'm going to flip this over, line up that piece on the back, and grab out some foam tape. This is foam tape that is a little bit thicker. You may want to double up your foam tape. It probably wouldn't be necessary. You wouldn't have to do it this way. I just like mine to be a little bit thick to make sure that everything moves smoothly. And you might want to add your foam tape to be a little bit closer to your pull tab than what I did. Mine kind of flops around a little bit more than I would like, but it still works great. You just might want to have it be a little bit closer. And then once I have all that on there, then before I actually adhere it, I'm going to do up the inside of my card, which uses this little girl, and then I'm going to stamp another sentiment on the inside that says, "It's paper crafting magic." I love that. So cute. And it goes so well with this stamp set. How fun. All right, I've peeled off all the release paper. There's an easier way to do it. I know there is. Probably just peel part of that and then try to adhere it. You could also use liquid glue on the back of that to give you a little bit of wiggle room. But I get that down there fairly straight. And then I'm going to stick my little pull inside the channel. And then I'm going to grab out some more of that same foam tape and use little snips of that. So I'll put a little piece right there. This is what's going to keep the pull from going outside or like coming completely out of the card. Once that's put on there, that is the stopper, basically. And then I'll use a couple more pieces of that foam tape inside the channel. And this way I can prop up the other piece of the little girl. So I'll peel off that release paper and then line everything up again, and then I can stick her down. And then you can use the pull tab to pull her little body away. So fun. All right, and then I'm going to use some glue to tack him down. And that's it. From here is just the rest of the assembly is using glue. So then I'll take these words that say, "This is no ordinary card," that were each cut out, and I'll adhere those down using some more liquid glue. And then I do decide to pull in a gel pen and add some little ellipses. "This is no ordinary card," and then it'll go with the inside of the card. It's paper crafting magic. For a last bit of embellishment, I pull out some itty bitty black stars, and I put those into my tidy tray, and I'm just tacking those down with my crystal katana along with some Bearly Art glue. This stuff is great. And that's going to finish off our card today. I know it was pretty involved, but boy, the end result is so worth it. I love it. So if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.